Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going deep on gold IRAs.
Ooh, gold IRAs. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, a lot of folks are looking to diversify their retirement portfolios, make sure their future's secure.
Makes sense. Got a plan for the golden years, right?
Exactly. And, gold has that reputation, right? Safe haven, all that.
Yeah, I've heard that, but does it really hold up?
Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We've got this article, Gold IRAs and Private Equity, combining the best of both worlds. We'll mainly be focusing on the gold side of things, though.
Okay, so less private equity, more gold. Got it.
Right. So we'll be exploring, does gold really protect against inflation? How do you actually set one of these gold IRAs up? The whole 9 yards.
I'm all ears. I mean, gold's been valuable for, what, centuries? It's kind of wild to think about how that could actually play into your retirement plan.
It really is. So let's start with something you're probably already familiar with. Portfolio diversification.
Diversification. Yeah, that's like not putting all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly. Especially as you get closer to retirement. Can't just rely on stocks and bonds.
Spread the risk around a bit.
Yep.
Right.
And that's where things like gold can come in. Alternative assets.
I see, I see. So when the stock market's doing its whole roller coaster thing,
Gold might be a bit more stable.
you're saying it could act as like a cushion.
That's the idea. It's not about going all in on gold, of course, but strategically adding it to the mix.
A little bit of sparkle in the portfolio. I like it.
And this article makes the case that gold IRAs are a good way to do that,
Okay, so gold IRA, is that like a regular IRA, but with gold?
basically. It's a self-directed IRA, but you hold physical gold, silver, platinum, things like that.
Physical, so I'd actually own the gold.
Yep. It's regulated by the IRS, though, so there are rules.
Right, so it's not like I'm burying gold bars in the backyard.
Definitely not. So how does it work then?
Well, first you need a custodian. They're kind of like a specialized bank for your precious metals.
Makes sense. Someone to look after the shiny stuff. What's next?
Then comes the fun part, buying the gold.
I bet. So I just call it my gold guy.
Not quite. The IRS has these standards, like the gold has to be super pure.
Oh, got it. No fool's gold allowed in the IRA. So let's say I've got my account, I bought the gold.
Mm.
Then what? Where does it actually go?
Can't just keep it at home. The IRS wants it in a secure
A
depository.
suppository, like Fort Knox.
Kind of. High security, insured, the whole shebang. They make sure your investment is safe.
Wow, that's serious business. But speaking of risks, the article mentions scams.
Oh, yeah. Definitely got to watch out for those. People see gold and they lose their heads sometimes.
So what are the red flags? What should people look out for?
Well, a big one is lack of transparency. A good provider will be upfront about fees, how they work, all that. If they're being shady or pushy.
Run the other way?
Exactly.
So it really is buyer beware. Do your research, choose wisely.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of being smart, this article talks about some misconceptions about gold IRAs.
That's what?
Well, some people think they're only for rich folks, the super wealthy.
Interesting. Is that true, though?
Not really. I mean, yeah, there are minimums, but they're more accessible than you might think. Costs have come down.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the whole volatility thing? Isn't gold kind of risky, especially for retirement?
It's true, gold prices go up and down, but over the long haul, it tends to hold its value. Especially, when things get shaky in the economy.
Right, right. Like we were saying earlier, that whole safe haven thing.
Exactly. And speaking of shaky economies, what about inflation? It's been a hot topic lately.
Yeah, for sure. Does gold help with that? Does it protect you?
That's what the article argues. Gold tends to rise when paper money, dollars and such, lose their buying power.
Oh, like back in the 70s.
Exactly. Inflation was crazy then, and gold prices went way up.
So basically, gold can help you keep up with rising prices, even when you're retired.
That's the idea. The article actually has some case studies about this if you want to hear about them.
Always love a good case study. Lay it on me.
Okay, so there's this couple, the Johnsons. They're in their 60s, and they had a lot of their money in the stock market.
Okay, and then what happened?
Well, the market took a dip, and they realized, whoops, maybe we should have diversified a bit more.
Classic mistake.
Right. So their advisors suggested a gold IRA, and they rolled over part of their 401k into it.
So they shifted some of their money from stocks to gold.
Yep. And it turns out their gold holdings actually went up in value during that market dip.
Ooh, that's a win.
It kind of balanced out the losses they had from the stocks.
Gave him a little peace of mind, I bet.
Exactly. The article also talks about Maria, a retiree worried about inflation eating away at her savings.
Yeah, fixed income and inflation, not a good mix.
Right. So she decided to put some of her money into a gold IRA.
Makes sense.
And as inflation climbed, so did the value of her gold. It helped her stay ahead of those rising prices.
So Maria and the Johnsons, they both benefited, but in different ways.
Yeah, it shows how gold IRAs can be helpful for different folks.
Right, different situations, different needs, but it sounds like it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, is it?
That's what the article emphasizes. They even have a little FAQ section addressing some common questions.
Oh, like what?
Well, one big one is, how much of your retirement should be in gold? Is there a magic number?
I was wondering about that myself.
They suggest 5–10% is a good starting point for most people.
Okay, so it's not about going all in, but having a portion in gold.
Right. They also remind folks that even though gold's historically been good in tough times, it can still go up and down.
No guarantees in the market, right?
Exactly. But it sounds like the benefits, especially that inflation protection, could outweigh the risks for some people, especially those close to retirement.
Makes sense. And hey, speaking of the nuts and bolts, what about setting one of these things up? The article mentioned rolling over a 401k, right?
Yeah, rollovers are pretty common. You can usually move money directly from your old 401k or IRA into a gold IRA, no tax penalties.
So it's like a smooth transition.
Yeah, pretty much. They suggest talking to your plan administrator and your gold IRA provider to get the ball rolling.
And probably a good idea to check in with a tax advisor too, right? Just to be safe.
Always a good idea when dealing with retirement accounts. And the article also talks about managing your gold IRA, like after you set it up.
Oh, right. It's not just a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Exactly. You got to review it from time to time, maybe rebalance things. Keep an eye on the markets.
So even though it's not like actively trading stocks, you still got to be involved.
Yeah, it's part of being a responsible investor. It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Well said. So we've talked about the good stuff, the potential benefits of gold IRAs. But what about the other side of the coin? Are there any downsides people should know about?
Ah, good point. Important to see both sides.
So spill the tea. What are the potential downsides?
Well, like we said, gold prices can be unpredictable in the short term.
Okay, so some ups and downs are to be expected.
Right. And even though it's historically been good with inflation, there's no guarantee it'll always be that way.
Right, economies change, things happen.
And another thing, gold doesn't generate income like, say, stocks with dividends.
So you're really relying on the price of gold going up to see a return.
Pretty much. And while that's likely over the long term, there might be times when it stays flat or even dips.
Got to be in it for the long haul then.
That's the key. And remember, gold IRAs have rules, regulations. It can get a bit complicated compared to a regular IRA.
Right, we talked about the providers, the storage, all that.
Exactly. So yeah, there are things to think about, costs to consider.
Not a decision to be made lightly.
Definitely not. Do your research, get advice, figure out if it really fits your goals and your comfort level with risk.
All right, solid advice. Now I'm thinking about our listeners, and they probably have some questions brewing.
I bet they do. Lots of practical stuff to figure out.
Right. For example, what kinds of gold can you actually put in a gold IRA?
Good question. The article mentioned physical gold, but it's more specific than that. You can have bullion, like gold bars or ingots.
Ooh, ingots. Sounds fancy.
Right. And you can have coins too, but they have to be certain types that the IRS approves, like American Eagles.
Ah, so not just any old coin will do.
Nope. Purity standards and all that. Got to work with a provider who knows their stuff.
What about other precious metals? Can you have silver, platinum, that sort of thing?
You can. Gold IRA is kind of a broad term. The IRS is cool with silver, platinum, palladium too, as long as they're pure enough.
So you can mix and match a little, have a precious metal party in your IRA.
Exactly. And it's good to have options because, different metals might perform differently depending on what the market's doing.
Right. Got to diversify even within the precious metals, it seems.
Exactly. Diversification is king, no matter what you're investing in.
Okay, I'm getting the message loud and clear.
Good. Now, I know this article is all about gold IRAs, but are there other ways to, invest in gold if you don't want the whole IRA thing?
Yeah, I was curious about that too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can buy gold directly, like coins or bars. You can invest in gold ETFs. Those are like funds that track the gold price. And there are gold mining stocks where you're investing in the companies that, dig up the gold.
So options galore. It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. Different strokes for different folks. But remember, every investment has its own risks and rewards.
Right. Got to do your research.
Absolutely. Talk to a financial advisor, get the facts.
That's always good advice.
Yeah.
Now, I can't let us forget about private equity. The article mentioned it,
Oh,
right?
yeah, it was in the title, but we haven't really talked about it.
So what's the deal with private equity and gold IRAs?
Well, they suggested you could combine them, like have both in your portfolio.
Interesting. How does that work?
Private equity is like investing in companies that aren't publicly traded. It can be riskier, but it also has the potential for big returns.
Sounds a little more advanced, maybe not for everyone.
Yeah, the article said it's important to really understand both gold IRAs and private equity before you go mixing them.
That'll be a good idea to have a financial advisor in your corner for that one.
For sure. Not something to jump into without doing your homework.
All right, so we've covered a lot today. The ins and outs of gold IRAs, even a little peek into the world of private equity.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. And hopefully our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of how gold IRAs work, what the benefits are, and what to watch out for.
That's the goal. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your money.
Absolutely. So before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to you, the listener.
Ooh, time for some introspection. I like it.
So we've covered all this ground, all this info about gold IRAs. What are you thinking now? Do you see them as part of your plan, like for a stable financial future?
Well, they could be, right? I mean, we've seen how gold can hold its value, potentially protect against inflation. That's got to be appealing, right? But at the end of the day, it really depends on you, your situation, your goals, how much risk you're comfortable with.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Exactly. We've given you the rundown, the basics, but making the actual decision, that's where a financial advisor comes in.
Makes sense. They can look at your whole picture, figure out what makes sense for you.
Exactly. Because a gold IRA, it might be a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle, right?
Right. You know, well-rounded plan, one that covers all the bases.
And that plan has to change over time, right? As your life changes, as the market changes.
Flexibility is key, it seems.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's not just about picking the right investments. It's about managing them, adapting, staying informed. It's an ongoing process.
So we're not talking set it and forget it here.
Nope. Got to stay engaged, keep learning, make smart choices. It's about creating a financial lifestyle, not just a portfolio.
I like that. Financial lifestyle. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to think about. If gold has been valuable for centuries, like what does that tell us about its place in today's world, in our financial lives?
That's a good one. It makes you think about like what real wealth is, right? Preserving your purchasing power, maybe having some tangible assets that can hold their value.
Thinking long-term, not just about the quick wins.
Exactly. Financial security, it's not just about making money, it's about keeping it, making it work for you.
Well said. So there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into gold IRAs. Hope you learned a thing or two and maybe even got inspired to think about your own financial journey.
Remember, the more you know, the better decisions you can make.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.